Hello, everyone. It's Debra Hamilton. I'm so glad all of you are here. This is going to be one of my favorite MAAP programs because we have had so much disaster in the past month and a half, 2 months, that everyone here recognizes having a plan to navigate the journey your pet is taking is key. So I'm Debra Hamilton of Hamilton Law and Mediation. I actually mediate conflicts between people over animals. I'm an attorney who litigated her entire career and then decided destroying people's relationships while they try to work out their disagreements didn't work for me anymore. So I stopped and now I mediate conflicts between people over animals, and I love what I'm doing. I wrote a book, Nipped in the Bud, Not in the Butt, which you can find on Amazon. It's a 5-star bestseller. Anybody who's in a conflict with an animal has used it to either ask me to help them or to resolve their conflicts themselves using the tools in it. So without further ado, you have come here today because you want to know how to make that plan for your beloved pets that will keep them safe. In the past weeks, we've had earthquakes, we've had fire, we've had hurricane floods repeatedly. It's not like, oh my God, we just had one hurricane. We had tons of hurricanes. And it really hit home for me because not only was I watching dogs in every newsreel in the boats, but I was watching people with their dogs in crates in shelters. So to give you a little history about how dogs now are allowed in shelters, people shelters, after Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people lost their lives because they wouldn't leave without their beloved animals. You both, you all are here to learn how to make sure that won't happen to you and it won't happen to your pet. But what states did and what the federal government supported was to provide sheltering for people with animals. However, as we all know, some people don't put their dogs in crates, don't have crates to bring with them. So what do you do if you're a pet owner and your dog hasn't been in a crate since it was a puppy and it really doesn't like the crate? And what are you going to do? There were some that were on beds. There were some that were, just in little baskets. You really need to take the time to make the plan that you're going to follow if something were to happen. I started this program in 2014. I have given a free webinar almost every month since then because it's so important to me to get the message out, because I was like most pet owners saying, I'm fine. My sons will take care of my dogs. My husband will take care of my dogs. I have tons of friends. You saw from my cover photo, and my assistant is here with my cover photo as well. I have Irish setters and long-haired dachshunds, and they're pretty big dogs. I broke my ankle in 2013 and recognized as I was on the couch with my leg in a boot, totally unable to walk on it for 8 weeks, that in fact, my husband really didn't want to take care of my dogs. He wanted to take care of me. He was worried about me. My son was happy to take care of the dogs, but he had to go back to school, and I had nobody else to take care of my dogs. Sure, my friends would stop by and they would, help me here and there, but as far as the everyday care that your dogs need, that didn't happen. So when I was sitting there for 8 weeks, I wrote my MAAP plan. At the time, it was called I'm Not Dead Yet, which I hope you all chuckled, because people usually only make plans for their pets if they die. And what I found was that you really need to make plans for your pets, short-term and long-term. And I'll get into that a little bit more when we get fully started. I'm going to give everybody about another minute to show up. If you could do me a favor, go in the chat box, let me know where you're from and your name, where you're from, and what kind of animals you have, because I want to make sure I hit on all the animals that need to be cared for in the event a disaster strikes. So take some time. I'm going to give you a minute and type in the box, where you're from and how many pets you have. And I'm hoping it works. Okay, so, well, thank you, Jackie, from Newcastle, Colorado, one of my favorite states. You have two dogs. Houston, Texas, Rebson, two dogs. New York City, great. Thank you so much. I just, to me, it's really important to know who I'm speaking to. So I want to give you the information you're going to need. As I said, in 2013, I broke my ankle and didn't have a plan for my 9 dogs downstairs. Now, you might think I'm crazy, but I show Irish setters and long-haired dachshunds, and I have a lot of dogs. But there's a double-edged sword to people who show dogs. They all think, well, my friends will come and take care of the dogs. My family will take care of the dogs. They'll be able to read my mind. I'll be able to point to them and say, oh, do this, do that, do the other thing. Well, what I found out was that my family couldn't take care of my dogs because they were taking care of me. My friends who came initially really couldn't make the commitment for 8 weeks. And quite frankly, I didn't have directions written down on how to take care of my pets. How many of you have written directions for the care of your pets if you weren't there and somebody had to step into your shoes to take care of your pets? Could you just let me know if you have written directions? Just for feeding. Yep. I didn't even have that. I was 1-800 bad mother. I didn't have feeding directions because nothing was going to happen to me. Nothing. So I learned a very, very difficult lesson, a very painful lesson. But as I said, for the past 3 years, I have been sharing that lesson with everyone I can in these free webinars. So it went from I'm Not Dead Yet, which a lot of my friends thought was a very cool name because what happens is people make plans for their pets if they die, but don't make any plans for the care of their pets if they have a stroke, if they break a bone, if they develop Alzheimer's, if they're suffering through cancer treatment. What do? You're in the middle of this life-altering event, and you haven't made a plan for your pet. And if, in fact, all of your plans for your pets are in your will, you better die. Because otherwise, none of those plans and none of that money gets released to care for your pets because you've put it in your will and you need to die. In fact, I give a program, and I'm actually giving a bunch of lunch and learns to breed clubs, to rescues, to law firms. Can you believe it? Law firms are calling me because they don't know how to do it. They know how to write the pet trust that should sit outside your will to have all the information about your care of your pet in it, plus some money. But they don't want to do what I do, which is help you locate those people who are going to care for your pets, both long-term and short-term. I actually have a co-owner of one of my dogs who broke her ankle 2 weeks ago, and she has a MAAP plan. When she broke her ankle, not only did she know who to call, they were ready to take care of the dogs. And I was, of course, one of them because I co-own her dogs. I was there the next day because that's the understanding we had. And if, in fact, I couldn't get there the next day, what the MAAP plan helps you do is have redundancy. So if I couldn't get there for 2 days or 3 days, there was somebody who could take the dogs short term and then have me come and get them long term. If you don't have this kind of plan in place, you are planning to fail your pets in the most basic of ways. Nobody will know how to care for them. So we have every month heartworm and tick prevention. Is that somewhere where somebody can find it? Unlikely. We have medications that our dogs get. Is that written down somewhere? Unlikely. Because we know it. We're going to be there. We're going to take care of our pets. I give a program and I have a retreat with a gal friend of mine who is the best disaster preparedness, animal disaster preparedness person I've ever met, Denise Fleck, Sunny Dog Inc., just the best. We've held many webinars together, and she and I developed the 6 Ds that you have to be concerned about when you're caring for your pets. You love them. They're depending on you. They cannot take care of themselves. As you saw in the hurricanes and in the earthquakes, these dogs are wandering. In fact, they just found a dog in the earthquake alive. These dogs are wandering. Earthquakes are different. We'll talk about those in a minute. But in the hurricanes, these dogs either were put in crates in the people's homes and drowned, or were left to fend for themselves, which is ridiculous. Only a handful were able to get into the shelters that allowed animals. So Denise and I developed, because this is what we do, we talk about disaster preparedness and making that plan. We came up with the 6 Ds that you have to address when you are trying to get your pets cared for long-term, short-term. And I hope you have a pen and a piece of paper. Maybe I will type it. Rose, can you type these into the little chat box after I give them so everybody knows what the 6 Ds are? So the 6 Ds are, of course, death. You have to plan for your pet in your will so that it can augment any plan you have that's outside of your will that has sustained your dogs before your demise. But then you have disability, which would be broken arm, broken leg, whatever. Disease would be cancer. You know, here you are, Alzheimer's. You have a disease, and you can't care for your dogs because you're caring for yourselves. And maybe you'll get better, but you really have to make a plan. Delay. So how many people were not able to get home who were in Puerto Rico, who were in Houston for conferences or whatever, who were in Florida, who didn't evacuate, or who did evacuate and then couldn't get back to their pets that they left for, with, say, dog kennels or their trainers. I saw a program, and maybe many of you did as well, where a dog trainer actually took 25 of her clients' dogs in her place of business and helped them. But they're without electricity. Who knows if they had enough food to cover the dogs for the 2 or 3 weeks it's been since the disaster struck. So the delay in getting food and getting electricity and getting back is huge. The next one is disaster. So here we are. We're talking about the disasters. So it's the hurricanes, the fires, and the earthquakes. And then finally, I also deal with divorce, because quite frankly, when you get divorced, a number of times people just say, well, I'm taking the dog and I'm not going to share my dog with my ex. Well, first of all, I'm a big proponent of making sure your ex is still in the picture with respect to the dog, because unfortunately for you, your dog doesn't hate your ex. Bloomberg quoted me 2 years ago when I said that, and it was all over the country in newspapers when they wrote an article about divorcing with pets. And it's absolutely true. So if in fact you are divorced, you really want to make sure that there is some connection between you and your ex so that your pet has a place to go, even if they're across country, because you want to get your pet out of harm's way. When the newspapers were giving, and the news were giving all the information about the hurricane and about, well, the 2 hurricanes, the terrible hurricanes, people were saying, well, I'm going to shelter in place. And I said, you know what? Good for you. You should do that if you'd like to do that. But if you have a pet, there is no quarter for sheltering in place when you have a pet. Now, for my friends and colleagues who will listen to this later on who have horses, you're saying to me, but Deborah, there is no way I can move 20 horses. There's no way I could move my horse. If you have 1 or 2 horses, there is a way you could move your horse. In fact, I gave a conference in Oregon to a bunch of riders who all live near each other, who all knew each other's horses. Some of them were in the same barns. Some of them had barns in their own area behind their homes and things. And I said to them, so what do you have in place to be able to take your neighbor's horses if in fact they're not home? And they go, nothing. And I said, well, you won't be allowed back up after you drop your horses off unless you do it a week in advance, which is always what I say. If they're threatening a hurricane, you better get out a week in advance and be first online for, you know, dog food and a place to stay that allows dogs, because those places fill up really quickly. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that if you have a horse, that you actually, if there's a lot of them, get them to the highest ground you can. because there was one shot of a newsreel where a horse was in a round pen, locked in a round pen, water up to his neck. And they finally came and opened up the round pen, and then he could run through the water that was up to his neck to a higher ground. I mean, these horses have survived millennial and do know how to get out of the way if you have a lot of horses. But if you leave them in their stall, they might die, and then you'll never forgive yourself. Best process is to have a plan and talk to people in the next state. So in Colorado, if a fire is coming, you want to talk to somebody possibly further away from the fire, maybe in Wyoming, maybe nearby Utah, wherever is closer to your part of Colorado, Arizona. I know Colorado has 4 corners, so I'm trying to think of the states next to it. But you want to make sure that you can get far away so that you can save your horses and your dogs and your cats and yourself, because you know what? They're depending on you. So I started this MAAP plan, which stands for, Rose, make sure you put this down as well. So the MAAP plan stands for Make a Plan. Have you made a plan? Have you made an escape route plan for your pets? This is what I need to take. This is what I need to do, because there are so many papers that you're going to need to take with your pet as you walk out the door. So if you have them in an easy to go, grab and go file, which is what we do in the MAAP Blueprint program, we put together that file. We put together the grab and go file. We put together the note on the refrigerator, because if you're found by EMS on the floor, God forbid, but if you're found on the floor by EMS, they're calling animal care and control, and your dogs are going to a shelter. Unless there is, I provide everyone who, goes through the Blueprint plan with a paw that's on the window of their home that someone would come into if in fact they were ill, and also on their refrigerator. If something happens to me, please call this number, because it really is important to have that information accessible to EMS and animal care and control, because that way, hopefully, your dogs won't ever spend a night in a shelter. I know that my dogs, being show dogs, have spent time in kennels, have spent time in crates, but most of our beloved pets do not like to be in kennels or crates. So you really want to minimize that, especially if they're older. I mean, if you've got an older guy, that's really important. So the M stands for Make a Plan. It's the basic. What is your plan? What would you do if you had a fire? What would you do if you had a flood? What would you do if you had an earthquake? Now, it was really interesting when I put out the flyer for this webinar, I had someone write to me and say, but Debra, how do you prepare for an earthquake? And I said, not easy. Not easy, because they don't give a lot of warning. They give about enough warning for you to get outside so the house doesn't fall on you. But they don't give a lot of warning, and sometimes if you're asleep, you don't even get that warning. But what you need to do is, if in fact an earthquake comes and your buildings are destroyed, where are you going to take your pets? Where are you going to go? So you want to be immediately have in your possession the 5 or 6 hotels in your town, or in 5 towns over where the earthquake might not have decimated things, and be able to call them immediately and reserve a room for you and your pets. It's just this huge amount of information that we work through in the Blueprint program, because people go, but Debra, I know my neighbor will take my dog. Not if the fire's turns in the morning and you're at work and they haven't made a plan. They're going to be running and your dog's going to be left there, or your cat, or your bird. That's the other one that really, I do specific informational programs for people who have horses and snakes and birds, because they're delicate. They aren't accepted, really. I mean, some of these shelters did allow mammals of all kinds in. So they allowed snakes and, well, they're reptiles, but they allowed snakes in if they were in a container. But if you have no electricity, you have no heat. So what are you going to do? So the first part of the MAAP plan is M, make a plan. The second one, and you all know this, is to address the needs of each and every one of your animals. Now, that doesn't just mean, they eat this and this is the medication they take and whatever. It is so intricate. In fact, when I had my last MAAP group go through, they went, Debra, we never would have thought to put that in the MAAP plan, because who would have known that I was supposed to make sure I told them that my dog didn't like, little dogs or furry dogs or, big dogs, or was allergic to turkey. I mean, I know that, but who would know that? It's really important to address the needs of each and every one of your pets. And then, of course, the other A stands for appointing the caregivers. And as I said before, the redundancy is key, because you can't just say my husband and my kids are going to take it. I've been at so many rescue events where they're raising money, where wonderful people have adopted several dogs from rescue. And when I tell them, come take the MAAP program with me so the dog doesn't end up in the shelter again. And they said, I'm not going to end up in the shelter again. My kids are taking the dogs. And then the kids pull me aside and say, how do I tell her I'm not taking the dog? I hate the dog. Well, you have to tell her. No, I'm not going to tell her. She'll cut me out of her will. This is the kind of thing that people don't address. And it's okay not to leave your dog with your children. It's okay to say, my directives, I have 2 wonderful sons who would love being able to take care of my dogs. But one's 27 in California, has cats and a girlfriend who doesn't like dogs, and the other is still in school. He doesn't have the ability to take care of my dogs. So, the first 2 people on the list, Drew and Tom. And then there are 5 other people on the list. And what I say in my directives is, Drew and Tom, I don't want you to feel bad that you can't take care of my pets. I want you to know that Mary can take them, and Rose can take them, and Sue can take them. And then when you're ready, if they're still alive, you can get them back. But right now might not be a good time for you to take the pets. And they won't feel bad. And P.S., they know where else to put the dogs. So that is key, appointing the person in redundancy who's going to take care of your pets. Also, when you're appointing, and I know this may rub people really the wrong way, but you really need to put down, if you have a breed dog, the breed-specific rescue that's affiliated with your national club. Because if all else fails, your breed-specific rescue is going to take your dog, evaluate it, foster it, and put it in a home where it belongs, because they know the breed. So you want to do that. And I truly have to tell you, make sure it is a rescue, a pure breed rescue that is affiliated and supported by your national club. Because if you don't, it could be a rescue that is only profiting from the fact that people really want Cocker Spaniels and go and rescue Cocker Spaniels and know nothing about Cocker Spaniels, but really just want to make the money from placing these Cocker Spaniels. So make sure you do your homework. So that's a point. And then the last one is P, and you're sitting there going, okay, Deborah, so what does P stand for? Puppy? Person? No. I had a woman who took this course 5 years ago? No, 3 years ago, right when I started. I went out to California, gave this course for 30 people, and she wrote the entire plan up. And that was when it was called I'm Not Dead Yet. And she never told anybody about it. She put it in a drawer. Everything was there. Redundancy, everything the pets needed to live a full life, all their special idiosyncrasies. And she forgot to tell anybody, especially her husband. So somebody came in and said to her husband, I'll be happy to place all of your dogs. And he goes, okay, great, thanks. And they did. And all of these dogs were co-owned with other people who came because they knew that she had said, hey, Sue, hey, Mary, hey, Jean, if something happens to me, I've had this plan, and you guys get the dogs. Well, no, they didn't, because, of course, the plan and the contracts were made between the dead person and the co-owners. So there was nothing the co-owners could do. Of course, they could sue the executor, her husband, so that he could then provide the dogs or find the dogs. But he didn't know where the dogs were. And the person who placed the dogs said, sorry, I'm not a party to the contract. Very smart woman. I'm not a party to the contract. And so I don't have to tell you where the pets are. They're in a really good home. So that's what happens when you don't use the P of the MAAP plan. That's why I put it together this way. It's so simple. So we're coming to the end of the half hour. I have so much to say. I apologize, guys. I talk nonstop. If you have any questions, please punch them in the box right now, because I want to talk a little bit about making sure that you do this. Everybody hangs up from this program and says, I can do this myself. And then at least half of the people who hang up recognize a month later they aren't doing the program. They haven't done the program. Slip shot. So what I do is I provide you with the templates to fill out and the discipline to finish the MAAP program in about a month, maybe 6 weeks, depending. It's 5 one-hour calls with me where I'm here, just like now. I'm talking to you. You're having a problem trying to figure out who the person is or what you should say about what the dog needs, or, you know, where you find someone who's a rescue. I'm here. That's what I do. I help you find it. And it's called the MAAP Blueprint program. And I want to tell you that it is the most inexpensive program you will ever get. In 2018, you know, I'm going to give it up. Not give it up, but it's going to go up, because, quite frankly, I am there answering every single question every person has that is part of the program. I don't care what the question is. I'm there. I say I'm there for 60 minutes. Sometimes I'm there for 90 minutes. Not only am I giving you additional information, but I'm also answering your questions. So if you want, when this webinar is over, you're going to get an email thanking you for coming, and it's going to give you a link, and you can go look for it and look for the program. It's $147 if you make one payment, $147 to get the MAAP plan made. Are you kidding me, Deborah? No, I'm not, because, you know, this is not a moneymaker for me. It's sort of like I want to have you make a big enough commitment that you show up and you do the work, but a small enough commitment that doesn't say, oh, that's way too expensive, Deborah. And so for 2017, I'm going to do 2 or 3 more MAAP groups. And it's a revolving group. So if you miss a week, it doesn't mean that, you know, I can only listen for 5 weeks and then I'm thrown out of the group. No, 2017 is going to be the year of everyone always being a part of the MAAP program, because every year you need to check in and you need to make sure that everything is set. So a friend of mine, Norva, who's in England, said to me, Deborah, you need to add an S to the end of the MAAP plan. And I go, it doesn't sound good, Norva, I can't do it. But I do add a 5th. So we have 4 one-hour learning experiences. We go over all the information that you got on the template. You ask me any questions. I give you tons more information. And then the 5th one is the S, where we schedule when you're going to check in every single year. I cannot tell you how many times I've had people who've made the MAAP plan before the S was stuck on the end by Norva, and they thought that the person they had appointed was going to be available to them no matter what, years. And they weren't. They'd moved into a no-pet building. They didn't have any pets of their own. They had a pet that didn't get along with other pets. So you really have to check in with your person, people, your redundant people, every single year. I always say it just makes good sense, because here you are. You've already said likely that you're going to take somebody's pet, because we all quid pro quo, right? Wouldn't you like to be reminded that you said you were going to take Mary's dog, because you might forget 5 years down the road? How many of us are, you know, over 21 and absolutely forget what we had for breakfast? So you really want to make sure that you schedule a review. So right now, that's what I'm going to do. We're at the 30-minute mark. Nobody's put in a question. I'm very disappointed, but that's okay, because I'm giving you a ton of information, hitting you with a fire hose. But really and truly, I am just passionate about you being able to take care of your pets long-term, short-term. We've had such disasters in the past 4 to 6 weeks that it really has to make you wonder whether or not your plan for your pets is going to take care of your pets in the event a disaster strikes, a fire happens, or even an earthquake. So you want to join us for the Blueprint plan. It's inexpensive. It makes you do the work. Come on, are you going to go home and do this? I can tell you that if I write you a month from now, which I will, because I'm sort of like this little person who, you know, sort of taps you on the back. Did you do it? Did you make the MAAP plan? Have you taken care of the of your pets, long-term, short-term, remember, it is about making a plan, appointing caregivers, addressing the needs of your pets, and publishing. So there it is in a nutshell. You can do it yourself if you like. Unlikely, but you can. Or you can join us. It's a revolving program. It takes about 60 minutes every 4 weeks that we sit down, and if you have any questions, I'm live. Ask me. When was the last time you heard an attorney say, I'm live, ask me, I'll help you, because this is my passion. This is something that I know you really want to do. You just don't know what you have to do. Remember, if all of your plans are in your will, you have to make sure you die. I'm just saying, if they're all in your will, you have to make sure you die, because none of those plans are going to come into fruition if you have a stroke, you develop Alzheimer's, and you've absolutely gotten sick, cancer, whatever. Oh, yay! Jackie, thanks so much. I'm part of the Roaring Fork Kennel Club here in Western Colorado. Do you ever? Oh, my God, yes. In fact, I was scheduled to do a program in Lakewood, Colorado, but unfortunately, it was the same time I broke my ankle. No, actually, it wasn't. But it didn't come to fruition because there was just so much going on in Colorado, but I would love to come out. In fact, I give this program at nationals, so dog breed nationals. I give this program at rescues because it just boggles my mind that a rescue doesn't understand, and I do it for like minimal fee so that they can raise money to support their rescues, especially if it's a breed rescue. I absolutely do it for everyone. So yes, Jackie, I do these things for programs. I do them on webinars, so if you want not to pay to have me come out, great. I'll do a webinar for your group, and what I really like is for them to make a monetary commitment to Roaring Forks so that Roaring Forks and I can work together on how much it would cost, but that the people make a commitment. And yes, I do, because it's huge. This is so important. This is one of the things that make what I do so wonderful for me, because I help rescues help their owners not return the dog to rescue. Because, okay, in your rescue contract, it might say you have to return the dog to the rescue. In my contracts, when you buy a puppy from me, it says you have to return the puppy from me to me. However, I always say, if you have a child, a husband, a neighbor, a friend who has spent so much time with this dog that this dog would feel better with that person than with me, all you need to do is say, okay, Deborah, these are the 5 people that I want to have my dog, and if something happens to me, make sure one of them gets him. And I go, great, because we as breeders can't take back all our dogs. We would, don't get me wrong. However, if you have somebody who really loves your dog, who your dog knows, I want to put that dog in a place where they're safe, secure, and familiar. I certainly don't want to take the dog back into my menagerie and have it be like, oh my God. I want to help it be in a place where it is appropriate. But as a reputable breeder, I want to make sure that I know if that person, for some reason, cannot take care of the dog, they return it to me. So it's a win-win for everybody. So we're coming to the end of the hour. Thank you so much, Jackie, for your question. Anybody else has a question? The half hour. I only do this for a half hour because you know what, guys? You have really busy days, and I don't want to belabor you with this subject because it is a pretty emotional subject. What would happen to your pets if something happened to you? What would happen to them? Think about it. So join us. Rose is going to send you an email after this with the link. You can look it up. It's $147 if you pay in full. And then it's, I'm trying to see here because I never remember because it's, you know, or you can make 3 payments of $57. I mean, you can't get an attorney to help you do anything. And I'm not acting as an attorney. I'm actually acting as someone who is going to assist your trust and estate attorney in creating this program for you. As I said, I give lunch and learns at law firms now because they don't know how to do this. They don't know how to do this. We know how to do this. Anyway, it's a pleasure meeting all of you. Thank you so much. Jackie, I hope you got a lot out of it. Let me know. Ms. or Mr. Rebson, I hope you got a lot out of it. And there's the picture. Hi. And the person from Houston, I'm hoping you got a lot out of it. Let me know because it really is important to me. And Marty Greer, I'm so glad you're here. my dear friend and wonderful, wonderful veterinarian and attorney. She's just the best. This is Debra Voda Hamilton. I'm so glad you were all here with me today. And if you have any questions, again, we have about another minute before I'm going to end the program. Ask me. And if, in fact, you want to join us, as I said, it's a revolving program. I do the MAAP, and then I do the S, and then I start over again. So you're never late, because it doesn't, I mean, should you make the plan first? Yes, but it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm so flexible. I help everybody do everything. This is Debra Voda Hamilton. I'm so glad you guys were here. I hope no disaster, no fire, no disease, no disability, no delay hits you, and you take good care. Thanks so much.